Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego, where we worship each Sunday in the South Bay, in Hillcrest, and online.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a la primera Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de San Diego, donde adoramos cada domingo en South Bay, en Hillcrest y en línea.
My name is Valerie Jaquis, and I use the pronouns she, her. I am your current board vice president. A special welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. Please fill out the welcome card in your order of service.
Yo soy Tony Bianca y uso el pronombre él. Una bienvenida muy especial a todos que están con nosotros por primera vez. Les extendemos la invitación de rellenar el formulario en el orden del servicio.
Our community is a vital, diverse, multi-generational congregation without borders, with a mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values to help heal the world.
Somos una congregación compuesta de personas de distintas identidades racializadas y culturas, personas de diversas orientaciones sexuales e identidades de género, personas de varias habilidades mentales y físicas.
We are creators of community and compassion, and though we can fall short, we are committed to practicing an affirming welcoming to all.
Good morning, muy buenos días. I'm Marshall, I'm the music director, and it's my pleasure to invite you all to rise as body and spirit allow and join me and Reverend Justine and Tony and Tomas in singing our opening song, Peace, Salam, Shalom, written by Emma's Revolution, who will be here for a concert later this month.
Our chalice lighting words are from Walter Brueggemann. The prophetic tasks of the church are to tell the truth in a society that practices denial and express hope in a society that lives in despair. As we light this chalice, may we learn to live into this vision.
Con espíritu de reverencia, reconocemos que nos juntamos esta mañana en la tierra de los Kumeyaay, quienes continúan viviendo en todo su territorio. Al emprender este viaje juntos, mantengamos en nuestros corazones y mentes el pueblo Kumeyaay.
In a spirit of reverence, we acknowledge that we gather this morning on the land of the Kumeyaay, who continue to live throughout their territories. May the light of this candle shine for our commitment to the Kumeyaay people and to justice and equity for Indigenous people everywhere.
Well, you sang so beautifully a moment ago. I'd like to invite you to do it again. Let's rise in body or spirit and sing our church hymn.
Good morning, friends. I would like to invite any of the children or youth who would like to come up and join me for our time for all ages. Good morning. You brought a friend. Is that a koala? Oh. Oh, it's just your stuffed animal. Well, that's good. I'm glad your koala is here with us. Oh, okay. So later in the service, the adults are going to be talking about some specific things going on in the world and how people are thinking about them. But for right now, I would like to think with all of you about a kind of thinking called either-or thinking. So let me give you an example, and maybe you did this, maybe you've done this too. But when I was your age, I really, really wanted a Star Wars toy. And I said to my parents with a pitiful little face, "If you love me, you'll buy it for me." We call that a false choice. Have you ever heard? I know, a false choice. And that just means that I'm making something sound like it has to be one thing or the other. Either you love me or you don't love me or you'll buy me this toy. When really, that's not true. It can be both. My parents really, really loved me, and they also did not buy me that toy. So I was thinking about sometimes, even as adults, we can think like that. Can you believe that? I know, adults think like that too.
I was like, if you love me, I wanted a koala for Christmas.
Oh, and it looks like you got a koala for Christmas. So sometimes it works, but it's still a false choice. So I was thinking about those times when we sometimes present people with false choices or even think either or in our head, and I wrote a little poem. Would you like to hear it? Yes. Oh, I'm glad you said yes, because it was going to be a very short time for all ages. So this is my poem about those either or thinking. I was thinking back to times gone by and all the things I thought and why. There are things that seemed quite simple then, but when I think of them again, some things I was sure I loved or hated now seem a little more complicated. I remember a time when most people would say you had to choose between being good or gay. Back then, even now, you'll find some groups who say hating war means hating the troops. There are lots of people throughout our nation who say loving our country means hating immigration. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that there's no right or wrong, only shades of gray. I think some things are evil and some things are good, but some things aren't so easily understood. As a teacher, for instance, I've tried to love every kid, even when I hated some of the things that they did. Also, I deeply love a person or two, even though they voted for you-know-who. Sometimes the people we love make us mad, and that doesn't always mean that they're bad. So now, when I'm thinking things, unlike before, I try to avoid thinking either or. Because sometimes it's both, and sometimes it's neither, and sometimes I feel like I'm okay with either. But there's one thing I'm 100% sure of: my thinking's always good when it's guided by love. Thank you. All right. Do you think you and your koala can help me lead the congregation in the affirmation? Let's stand up and see if we can use our hands. Oh, I mean, that's a good thing. We'll say it first in English and then in Spanish. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. Somos unitarios universalistas, personas de mentes abiertas, corazones amorosos, y manos que dan la bienvenida. And now I invite all the children and youth and koalas who would like to join me and their leaders on the patio, and we'll go to religious education.
Good morning again, everyone. A couple of announcements before we move on with our service. First, I want to extend gratitude and congratulations to our Chalice Choir who sang last night at an event called Intersecciones, community choirs from Tijuana and San Diego. This is at the UCSD Park and Market Space. We brought more than 20 singers and got to sing in a choir made up of youth choirs and some women's choirs from Tijuana. There were more than 80 singers in the combined choir. It was a really special event, so thank you to Chalice Choir for that. And an invitation to all of you, I mentioned it before, but it'll be specific this time. On Saturday night, no, wrong, Friday night, April 26th, Emma's Revolution will be giving a concert right here on this stage. And so we invite you to register. You can go to frontstreetproductions.org, or you can go to the church website. There's information there too. Please come. That's Friday, April 26th. Emma's Revolution is a dynamic folk singing duo. They sing about social justice. They write their own music. They're fabulous musicians. And so please do join us here on Friday, April 26th for that. Thanks.
And a couple more announcements. As always, We have folks available to listen to what is on your heart. If you have a sorrow that is weighing you down, a member of the congregation will be out on the patio to listen with you. And this morning, that person is Melinda. Thank you. Wearing the colorful scarf. Dining for dollars. We're accepting offers of events that you might like to host, or if you have an idea that you're not able to host but you'd like to see someone else host, please go to our website and check out firstuusandiego.org, Dining for Dollars. This is one of our biggest fundraisers of the year, and it's a lot of fun, so please partake. One of the ways that we live our values is by sharing our offering each week with an organization that shares our values. And for the month of April, our generosity offering is for an organization called I Am Green. I Am Green's roots are firmly planted in southeastern San Diego, and their mission is to reconnect people back to the planet and each other. In the face of climate change inequities and environmental harm, they are dedicated to educating, advocating, and adding value to the most affected communities, right? We know that there is racism inherent in a lot of the environmental issues that go on in our state, in our community. So I Am Green is working for more robust, resilient, and regenerative lives for all. Save the date for an opportunity to hear from them during our Earth Day worship service on Sunday, April 28th. You can learn more about the organization at their website, I Am Green and So Are You, all one word, iamgreenandsoareyou.org. You can donate this morning in person by credit card using the dip jar over here, or by cash or check using the donation box over here. And if you need help, raise a hand. You can also donate online at our church website, firstuusandiego.org. Thank you for your generosity. The morning offering will now be gratefully received.
following are excerpts of Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's speech given on March 14th, 2024, as released by the Senator's office. I rise to speak today about what I believe can and should be the path forward to secure mutual peace and lasting prosperity for Israelis and Palestinians. I speak for myself, but I also speak for so many mainstream Jewish Americans, a silent majority, whose nuanced views on the matter have never been well represented in this country's discussions about the war in Gaza. My last name is Schumer, which derives from the Hebrew word shomer, or guardian. Of course, my first responsibility is to America and New York. But as the first Jewish majority leader of the United States Senate and the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in America ever, I also feel very keenly my responsibility as Shomer Yisrael, a guardian of the people of Israel. Throughout Jewish history, there have been many Shomrim, and plenty who were far greater than I claim to be. But nonetheless, this is the position in which I find myself now, at a time of great difficulty for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people, and for non-Jewish friends of Israel. So I feel an immense obligation to speak and act. I speak as a member of a community of Jewish Americans that I know very well. They are my family, my friends. Many of them are my constituents. Many of them are Democrats, and many are deeply concerned about the pursuit of justice, both in New York and around the globe. From the Talmud, Tikkun Olam, the call to repair the world, has driven Jews around the globe to do what is right. We love Israel in our bones. What Israel has meant to my generation within living memory of the Holocaust is impossible to measure. The flowering of the Jewish people in the desert from the ashes of the Holocaust, and the fulfillment of the dream of a Jewish homeland after nearly 2,000 years of praying and waiting, represents one of the most heartfelt causes of my life. And unlike some younger Americans, I remember how hard it was to achieve that dream. I remember clutching my transistor radio to my ear in James Madison High School during the Six-Day War, wondering if Israel would be pushed into the sea. If the events of the last few months have made anything clear, it is that Israel is surrounded by vicious enemies, and there are many people around the world who excuse and even support their aims to expel and kill Jews living in their hard-won land of refuge. I will never underestimate the grave threats Israel faces and has faced for the entirety of its existence, nor will I ever underestimate the oppression that the Jewish people have endured for millennia. It is precisely out of this long-standing connection to and concern for the state of Israel and its people that I speak today about what I view are the most pressing existential threats to Israel's long-term peace and prosperity. After 5 months of suffering on both sides of this conflict, our thinking must turn urgently to how we can achieve lasting peace and ensure prosperity and security for both the Jewish people and the Palestinian people in the Middle East. I believe that to achieve that lasting peace, which we so long for, Israel must make some significant course corrections, which I will outline in this speech. But first, let's not forget how we arrived at this critical moment. What Hamas did on October 7th was brutal beyond imagination. I have sat with the families of those killed in the assault. I have seen the footage and heard the stories of innocents murdered and raped in heartless cruelty. As long as I live, I will never forget these images, this pure and premeditated evil. Many of my family members were killed by Nazis in the Holocaust. October 7th and the shameless response to support this terrorist attack by some in America and around the globe have awakened the deepest fears of the Jewish people, that our annihilation remains a possibility. Today, over 130 hostages remain captive in Gaza. I am anguished by the plight of so many hostages still trapped deep inside Hamas's network of tunnels. I pray for them and for their families, who have inspired me with their tenacious advocacy to ensure their loved ones are not forgotten. I am working in every way I can to support the Biden administration as negotiations continue to free every last one of the hostages. I urge every actor at the table, the Israelis, the Biden administration, the Qataris, the Egyptians, and anybody else at the table, to continue doing everything possible to get a deal. Hamas has been given a deal already. They should say yes. There is no time to waste. My heart also breaks at the loss of so many civilian lives in Gaza. I am anguished that the Israeli war campaign has killed so many innocent Palestinians. I know that my fellow Jewish Americans feel this same anguish when they see the images of dead and starving children and destroyed homes. Gaza is experiencing a humanitarian catastrophe. Entire families wiped out, whole neighborhoods reduced to rubble, mass displacement, children suffering. We should not let the complexities of this conflict stop us from stating the plain truth. Palestinian civilians do not deserve to suffer for the sins of Hamas, and Israel has a moral obligation to do better. The United States has an obligation to do better. I believe the United States must provide robust humanitarian aid to Gaza and pressure the Israelis to let more of it get through to the people who need it. Jewish people throughout the centuries have empathized with those who are suffering and who are oppressed because we have known so much of that ourselves. As the Torah teaches us, every human life is precious, and every single innocent life lost, whether Israeli or Palestinian, is a tragedy that, as Scripture says, quote, destroys an entire world. What horrifies so many Jews especially is our sense that Israel is falling short of upholding these distinctly Jewish values that we hold so dear. We must be better than our enemies, lest we become them. Israel has a fundamental right to defend itself, but as I have said since the beginning of this war, how it exercises that right matters. Israel must prioritize the protection of civilian casualties when identifying military targets. I have repeatedly called upon the Israeli government to do so. But it must also be said that Israel is by no means the only one responsible for the immense civilian toll. To blame only Israel for the deaths of Palestinians is unfair, one-sided, and deliberately manipulative, and it ignores Hamas's role in this conflict. Hamas has knowingly invited an immense civilian toll during this war. Their goal on October 7th was to provoke a tough response from Israel by killing as many Jews as possible in the most vicious manner possible, by raping women, executing babies, desecrating bodies, brutalizing whole communities. Since then, Hamas has heartlessly hidden behind their fellow Palestinians by turning hospitals into command centers and refugee camps into missile launching sites. It is well documented that Hamas soldiers use innocent Gazans as human shields. The leaders of Hamas, many of whom live lives of luxury in places far away from the poverty and misfortune of Gaza, do not care one iota about the Palestinians for whom they claim to nobly fight. It bothers me deeply that most media outlets covering this war and many protesters opposing it have placed the blame for civilian casualties entirely on Israel. All too often in the media and at protests, it is never noted that Hamas has gone to great lengths to make themselves inseparable from the civilian population of Gaza by using Palestinians as human shields. Too many news agencies and newspapers give Hamas a pass by hardly ever discussing this shameful practice that is central to their fighting strategy. And this has led to an inaccurate perception of the harsh realities of this war. I believe stories that justifiably mention the loss of innocent Palestinian life should also note how Hamas uses civilians as human shields. It almost never happens. And I believe that every protest that justifiably decries the loss of innocent Palestinian men, women, and children should also denounce Hamas for their central role in this bloodshed. When protesters decry the loss of Palestinian life, but never condemn this perfidy or the loss of Israeli lives, it confounds and deeply troubles the vast majority of Jewish and non-Jewish Americans alike who support the State of Israel. Given that Hamas launched their attack on October 7th to provoke Israel, given that Hamas sought the ensuing civilian toll in Gaza, given that Hamas wanted both Israelis and Arabs to be at each other's throats, tensions on both sides have dramatically intensified. And now, as a result of these inflamed tensions in both the Israeli and Palestinian communities, people on all sides of this war are turning away from a two-state solution, including Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who in recent weeks has said out loud repeatedly what many have long suspected by outright rejecting the idea of Palestinian statehood and sovereignty. As the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in our government and a staunch defender of Israel, I rise today to say unequivocally, this is a grave mistake for Israel, for Palestinians, for the region, and the world. The only real and sustainable solution to this decades-old conflict is a negotiated two-state solution, a demilitarized Palestinian state living side by side with Israel in equal measures of peace, security, prosperity, dignity, and mutual recognition. Both Jews and Palestinians have long historic claims to this land. Contrary to the unfounded, absurd, and offensive claims by some that the Jewish people are, quote, colonizers in their ancestral homeland, Jewish people have lived in the Holy Land continuously for more than 3 millennia. For centuries, Jews have made Aliyah and gone to the land of Israel to live and settle. For centuries, at Passover, Jews at every corner of the globe have prayed, next year in Jerusalem. A Jewish homeland in Israel is no 20th century contrivance. Israel is our historic home, a home for people oppressed for centuries. The Palestinians, too, have lived on this land for generations, and in past centuries, they have formed their own distinct culture, identity, cuisine, and literature. The idea espoused by some that there is no such thing as Palestinians today is inaccurate, offensive, and unhelpful. The only just solution to this predicament is one in which each people can flourish in their own state, side by side. But for a two-state solution to work over the long term, it has to include real and meaningful compromises by both sides. Now is the time for courageous leadership. After Israelis and Palestinians have experienced so much horror and loss of life, to not have something meaningful come out of this war would be doubly tragic. History will look back on what we do here. Are we prepared together to have the courage to make an all-out push to bring about peace, once and for all? To bring to this conflict what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King called, quote, the fierce urgency of now, to end the cycles of tragedy and pain? I have always said when horrific things happen, some turn inwards and let their grief consume them, while others light a candle and turn their grief into power. They are able to see hope in the darkness. In Scripture, we read about how God created the world from an infinite void, that out of the greatest darkness can come the greatest light. I hope and pray that from the brutal slaying of Israelis by Hamas and the harrowing civilian toll in Gaza, that a two-state solution where Jews and Palestinians can live in peace will prevail. I know I'm not alone in this prayer. There are right now Palestinians in Gaza, some of whom are still pulling dead family members from the rubble, who are defying Hamas and their murderous ideology and calling for a pathway to peace. There are right now some families of the victims of October 7th who have been calling for peace, asking their government to transcend the cycle of bloodshed and revenge. If they can find in their hearts a path to peace, then surely we can also. From the ashes, may we light the candles that lead us to a better future for all. I'm grateful to rely on Reverend Justine to unpack some of that for us. But I invite you to just breathe with me that prayer for peace. The song is one of our hymns. The Hebrew poem was written by a Hungarian paratrooper named Hannes Senish, who fought in World War II and died fighting the Nazis. And there's a singable English translation which has been written, which is beautiful. So as we breathe together, I invite you to sing if you'd like, or just to take this prayer. And we send it to Palestinians, to Israelis, to all those in the world affected by violence. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea. The rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
I'm so grateful to you, Marshall, for offering those words in your voice. It has been said that there are two kinds of people in the world: those who divide people into two groups and those who do not. There are more than two choices, almost always. Tony, in his Time for All Ages, gave us some wonderful examples of either-or thinking. To be gay means you can't be religious or even a good person. If you're against the war, that means you hate our troops. I would add Black Lives Matter suggests that other lives don't matter. All this pressure on us to choose one or the other. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I remembered that famous moment with Ed Meese, former Attorney General of the United States, who said some version of, I'm paraphrasing here, well, if he isn't guilty, he wouldn't be a suspect. If he isn't a criminal, he wouldn't be indicted. He said this out loud, the United States Attorney General. Remember when we thought Ed Meese would be the worst Attorney General ever? What happened to innocent until proven guilty? One of the cornerstones of our legal system, of our system of government, right up there with honoring the results of our elections and the peaceful transfer of power. Remember when we believed that we could count on those things? We used to read books and write letters, and communication took time. Then came radio, which brought information and entertainment to us quickly and in real time, but it still required of us some imagination and creativity, right, to see what was being described. The advent of television brought us stories that could be told in under an hour, and newscasts of 1/2 hour that include both commercials and sports and weather. Sports is important, but I'm sorry, and if you only got half an hour to tell the news, maybe you shouldn't be spending 10 minutes of it on the fight that broke out in a hockey game. Some things are just wrong. And microwave popcorn is wrong. You heard it here. In our modern way of communicating, our newscasts, each complex story getting only a few minutes, and now with social media, videos watched on tiny phone screens, everything whizzing by so fast, it was hard, right, to listen to that whole speech. I watched you. You were very attentive, but it was long. And we cut down Schumer's speech from 6,000 words to 2,000. But we're not used to listening to something in long form like that. We expect beginning, middle, and end delivered in seconds, in a headline, in a catchy soundbite that can play in an endless loop. None of these fragments of light and sound lend themselves to nuance, to complexity. No, either or will do. Patriot or traitor, sinner or saint, right or wrong. And if that oversimplification isn't bad enough, the act of repetition can change the meaning of events. The former president calling the people who stormed our Capitol heroes and patriots. And then he calls our siblings across the border animals. And the press covers it, and social media replays it, and how many people come to believe those lies? And why? People believe the lies, I think, because we humans want things to make sense. And we want stories with uncomplicated plot lines. And with the shifts in the technology landscape, our tolerance for longer form narration has grown thin. Sermons used to be really long, folks. And in New England, where they didn't have heat in the church buildings, people would bundle up and they'd be there for hours. Don't worry. I think this topic warrants more discussion, and I had something planned for next week, but I think I'm going to continue this. So don't worry, we're not going to solve this today, as it turns out, but we'll keep talking about it. we seem to have lost the ability to hold complexity and diversity of understanding of events. Different histories and identities influence how we perceive what is happening, what we notice, what we worry about, what we know and what we think we know, what we believe. All of that is shaped by our personal histories and by our identities. Nigerian-born activist Bayo Akolome writes, "You see, when the world becomes too solid for nuance, when it hardens up and crystallizes into a binary that forces you to pick a side, compelling you to become intelligible to the hardness that creeps on its once loamy surfaces, cracks become the first responders." All that increased complexity alongside of our decreased capacity for engaging complexity leaves us highly unprepared to deal with and talk about a situation as complex and loaded and fraught as the struggles for power and territory and peace in the land of Israel and Palestine. And so, like many of you, like many of us, I waited. I would mention Israel and Gaza in prayers, but I haven't preached about it. Because if I'm honest, I feared getting it wrong, making it worse. And I have been praying for an answer, something clear and decisive and wise and comforting. But in my waiting for clarity and a way of talking about this without causing harm, I have caused harm with my silence. Harm to some of you and harm to myself, to the picture I have of my ministry. Silence in times of violence and suffering and injustice does cause harm because it leaves those of us who are suffering alone with our worries and our pain. And for my relative silence up to now, and for what the hesitation to speak out may have communicated, I am truly sorry. And then we have Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, Majority Leader of the United States Senate. He gave a 43-minute speech on the Senate floor. Marshall read excerpts of that speech for us this morning, and I mentioned that the original is over 6,000 words. We cut it back to about 2,000, hoping that we could retain the essence of what he had to say, which really is this: Israelis and Palestinians share a legitimate claim to the land, and they must find a way to live in peace. And not the kind of peace that comes from one group terrorizing or subjugating the other, but a true and lasting and accountable peace. The Israeli government is not going to relinquish its claim to the state of Israel any more than the United States government is going to give up its claim to all the lands that it took from the people who were already here. And let me remind us that Jewish people have had a presence in the land that Israel now holds for thousands of years. It is a homeland for Israelis and Palestinians alike. As compared to our United States, as far as we know, there were no Europeans on this continent before Columbus arrived just hundreds of years ago. But the United States is not going to dissolve itself now that we understand the injustices that exist from our country's founding. And yet we can work to repair, to reconcile. And Israel and Palestine must work together to repair and to reconcile, to build peace And we, as their neighbors on this planet, as their siblings, must help them. I'm not qualified to get into specifics, and there is still much I do not understand. There is considerable support, and you heard this case made strongly by Senator Schumer, for a two-state solution. There's also a wish for one intentionally multicultural society with shared rights, shared wealth and territory, and shared responsibility for building and keeping peace. I don't know what is actually possible, but I do know that we must insist that our leaders work for peace and put justice ahead of profit, ahead of precedent, and ahead of the collective guilt many of us feel about not having intervened to stop the Holocaust of Jewish people in World War II. We shouldn't have turned away then, and we cannot turn away now. People are dying. People are starving. As Senator Schumer says, the Israeli government has lost its way, and the people must speak. And we could say the same here, that many in our government have lost their way, and we must speak. President Biden has, in some of our eyes, been slow to speak, perhaps, but he has spoken now. He has increased the pressure on the Israeli government to act, to protect civilians. Not perfect, not enough. But silence is not an option. Silence speaks volumes. It allows injustice and cruelty to go unchecked. But when we speak out, we must do so with care. Jewish people everywhere feel a connection to Israel, not so much because of its legal statehood since 1948, but because of the Jewish people's ancient ties to that land and the ancient hope and struggle for peace and freedom. Next year in Jerusalem are the words offered in prayer at the end of a Passover Seder. This land is as sacred to Jews as a pilgrimage to Mecca is to Muslims, as a visit to the place where Jesus lived and died is to Christians. A holy land that must be shared. Again from Beyo Akalome. We need a politics of tenderness more than ever. Not tenderness as capitulation to particular conclusions that have already been made. Not tenderness as if you don't see the world as I do, there's something wrong with you. But tenderness as the nurturing of grace that allows something different, something even beautiful to be born in the midst of the fires. I close with these words from Yehuda Amichai, who spent his life building connection between Jews and Palestinians. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. Blessed be.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join with me in singing our closing hymn about that world that we would live to see.
Poet Mary Oliver once found herself in a field with snow gently falling, and off in the distance she heard the call of an owl. Here is some of the poem that emerged from that moment. If this were someone else's story, they would have insisted on knowing whatever is knowable, would have hurried over the fields to name it, the owl, I mean. But it's mine, this poem of the night, and I just stood there listening and holding out my hands to the soft glitter falling through the air. I love this world, but not for its answers. And I wish good luck to the owl, whatever its name, and I wish great welcome to the snow, whatever its severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning. May we hold all that beauty in all its complexity, and may we hold one another until we are together again. Amen. Blessed be.